21st Platoon. Hard drop. Secure our landing zone.
Understood.
Over the target in 5.
Hang on to your helmet.
Alright Grunts, welcome back to From ODST to Helldiver. In today's video we are going to be covering the Terminid faction in the game, which is the bug enemy type. The enemies in the Terminid faction range quite a bit. There are several different types of enemies that have different health, attacks, armor, etc. And we are going to do a relatively deep dive into exactly what kind of enemies there are and at what difficulty they begin spawning on the map. So for instance, almost nothing from the Terminid faction is going to spawn on the trivial difficulty of the game, but if you up that difficulty for your mission up to the level 8 impossible difficulty, you will have the opportunity to face every single type of enemy that the Terminids have at their disposal. Although the specific world that you're on, the map that you're doing the mission on, may affect which enemies will actually spawn. So we're going to deep dive a little bit into that, and that begins right now. Alright, so here at the war map, we are looking at a planet with the Terminid faction. We are looking at trivial difficulty. And for trivial difficulty, the first enemy type that we are going to discuss is the scavenger. Now these are the small little pesky bugs that are numerous but quite weak. They only have 60 health, they have no armor, and their claw attack does 40 damage. Now their strength completely relies on them outnumbering you. They are very easy to dispose of, so they're not usually too much of a threat, but they will attack in great numbers. The next enemy type that shows up on trivial difficulty is the warrior, and that is a much sturdier type of enemy. It starts with 250 health, although at higher difficulties, on the challenging level 4 or higher difficulty, they begin to start with 325 health instead of the 250, and their slash attack does 55 damage. The warriors don't have any armor, so they're easy to take down as well. With a 250 health is much more than the scavenger, but still not the most. They are going to be the toughest thing you can fight in trivial difficulties, aside from possibly a special enemy type we'll discuss later. Now next up is the bile spitter. Now this is an enemy very similar to the scavenger, but only shows up on specific maps that have the bile tag associated with them. If you're fighting a bunch of bile enemies, they'll show up on trivial difficulty. They have 60 health, and they actually spit a bile spew attack out that does 15 damage on the initial hit, followed by damage over time afterwards. So this is annoying. They have a range capability which separates them from several other Terminids. Most of the time they do not, but bile type enemies tend to. In addition to this spit attack, they also have a explosion that happens when they die, which does 85 damage and then damage over time, and this is all acid damage. Now, one thing to note about both the bile spew and the death explosion is that acid will slow you down, so keep that in mind. You're going to get slowed if you get hit by these, making bile spitters maybe the most annoying thing that you can encounter on trivial difficulty. Now there is one more enemy type that shows up on trivial difficulty, but it only shows up for specific mission types. The mission has to be to eliminate it, actually, and that is the Brood Commander. So the Brood Commander has 800 health and has light armor penetration as a defense, and its charge attack does 70 damage while its slash attack does 55, and it is able to summon a group of warriors to defend itself. So you oftentimes will not see the Brood Commander alone. It will have 3 warriors charging you, although warriors are pretty easy to take down. Now, the Brood Commander itself having light armor, we need to discuss exactly what armor does and what your penetrating weapons do. If you have light penetrating guns, they will be mitigated against the Brood Mother's light armor only a little bit, but light armor weapons will still penetrate the Brood Mother, or the Brood Commander. Medium penetrating weapons and higher will do full damage to the Brood Commander. So just keep that in mind. There is also something else about explosives, but I'm not going to dive too much into that at all, really. It's a little bit over my head, but explosive rounds do different amounts of damage. It's a mess. Regardless, the Brood Commander has light armor.
The bugs are attempting to convert our worlds into swarming hives of fascism. Will you let them, or will you join the fight?
Alright, we are on easy difficulty, and the new enemies that get introduced here, there are only 2. The first one is the Pouncer, which is a variant of the Scavenger. It has 60 health and does 40 damage with its slash attack, similar to the Scavenger. Its advantages are also that it has a numerous amount of allies. They do swarm, but the big difference is that it can lunge at you from a very large distance, which makes them one of the most annoying enemies in the game, even at higher difficulties. They can close the distance very, very quickly on you, so just keep all that in mind, but they are very easy to kill if you can keep an eye on them. The next enemy type is the Hive Guard. The Hive Guard is basically a variant of the Warrior type, but it offers medium armor penetration on its head and arms with 500 health, and its slash attack does 55 damage, similar to the Warrior. So it is a tanky double health warrior, and when you begin engaging with it, it will try to lock down in a defensive position to mitigate any damage it's going to take and wait for you to begin reloading before advancing on your position. If you don't have medium penetrating weaponry, it can cause some problems for you, but its weak points are pretty exploitable. All of the joints that it has, its body itself, those are all light armor or less. So if you only have a light armor weapon, just try to focus not on its head or its arms, instead anywhere else. If you do have medium penetration, go ahead and blast it in the head. Alright, I think that covers easy.
Terminids, unthinking monstrosities who want nothing more than to kill and eat every last human. And every last human includes your family. Don't let your family get eaten. Enlist today.
Next up, we have the medium difficulty, and we introduce several types of enemies here. The first one is the Hunter, which has 130 hit points until at challenging difficulty and higher it has 160 health. It has a slash attack that does 35 damage, and it has a pounce attack that does 35 damage as well, so it can jump and attack you, similar to the Pouncer. And it additionally has a tongue attack, which does 30 damage plus damage over time. And I think the tongue attack can also send you launching away. So keep an eye out for the hunters. They have a bit more health than the pouncers, continue to have a pounce attack, and can knock you prone with a tongue attack. After that, we additionally get a chance to see the Brood Commander, which has 800 health, light armor, has a charge attack of 70 damage, and a slash attack of 55 damage. Additionally, at this difficulty, depending on the type of environment you're fighting in, if it has spore types of enemies, the bile type, you can encounter nursing spewers and bile spewers. Now they are very, very similar. They're both spewers. They both have 750 health. They both have a spew attack that does 50 damage plus 100 damage over time, which is pretty nasty. I would avoid that if you could. I tend to find that they fire it in one direction. You can dive and it will continue to spew where you used to be and not where you're at. So try to do that if you can. But they begin to differ after that. So the nursing spewer has light armor exclusively, but the bile spewer has light armor until you get to level 6 extreme difficulty and onwards, where it actually shifts to medium armor, which makes them a bit tougher at a higher difficulty. They are, I think, the only enemy type that actually gains armor at higher difficulties. Usually they just gain more health. Additionally, the bile spewer has an alternate attack called the bile bomb. You will see its rear rise up as it lobs explosive attacks. They do 800 damage in a 200 meter radius, which is kind of massive. I think the 200 meter radius is a bit exaggerated, but that is what online is telling me. Either way, you do not want to get hit by one of those, and if it hits you in the face, it is pretty much over for you instantaneously. And additionally, they have a death burst, both of them, the nursing spewer and the bile spewer, that does 300 damage over time, so beware of both of those. Additionally, only the bile spewer actually has a claw attack. The nursing spewers do not. They only have the spew and the death blast. So, a little bit of information for you. Keep an eye out for these guys. They are pretty nasty, but easily slain with the right weaponry, even though they have 750 health. Alright, there's only one other enemy type that pops up on medium difficulty, and that is the Charger Behemoth. Now, it does not show up in regular missions. It specifically only shows up in missions where you are specifically called to go kill a Charger. These monstrosities have 3,000 health wrapped up in heavy armor. They have a 350 damage stomp attack, and when they charge you with their trample, they do 90 damage on contact and 30 damage at the end of their stride. So be very careful not to get run over by these guys. They are kind of like bulls. You can try to fake them out and juke them and dive out of the way, but on occasion that really doesn't even do it, and they just run over you anyways. If you see a charger, it is advised there's only a couple of things that you can really do to stop them. An anti-tank weapon to the face or one of their front arms can knock their armor off. You can finish off their arm with any kind of weaponry if it's exposed and no longer has the armor on the front. But additionally, the rear of the charger only has medium armor defenses. So you can actually slay any type of charger with well-placed medium armor or greater weapons in its butt. And now, when the rear of the charger explodes, damage at will after enough fire, they will begin to bleed out over time. So it's not an instantaneous death, but they will eventually die. Now they will still try to attack you while they're bleeding, so keep that in mind as well. And be on guard. The chargers are perhaps the nastiest thing that you're going to run into at medium difficulty, and for good reason. Additionally, if you get your hands on the thermite grenade, it can instantaneously kill a charger once it detonates, and they are susceptible to gas effects as well to help you attack their rear. Just a couple little things that I picked up over time.
If you've ever lost a loved one to the bug scourge, remember, they would want you to seek retribution.
Alright, next up is the challenging difficulty. And we have a few new introductions at this difficulty. The first one up is the Shrieker. They are the flying enemy type. They show up with the Shrieker nest, little objectives. They look like the spore objects that stick up out of the ground. There are usually 3 of them stuck together that you have to destroy all 3 of them. And while that's happening, the Shriekers will swarm you. Now, they have a very, very low health. They're usually pretty easy to take out. They do not have any armor, and they have a dive attack that does 50 damage, as well as if they are killed and fall from the sky, they can still do 40 damage to you. So you really need to be careful to avoid them. Now, it is slightly easy to avoid them if you only have them to worry about. If you dive on the ground, you can generally avoid everything they do. And they are quite susceptible to jukes. They tend to fly up in the air, decide they're going to attack, and charge at where your head is when they choose to attack. So if you move and sidestep it, they tend to completely miss you. Now, the best way that I have found to deal with them in general is to have some kind of machine gun turret or laser turret. Anything that can sustain fire and automatically hit them is really, really good. The backpack items that provide firepower are also excellent at killing Shriekers. But if you do not prioritize the Shrieker nest, you are likely going to encounter an endless wave of Shriekers, which could be very, very, very annoying. They are one of the most annoying enemy types in the game. I hate them. Kill them with fire if I could, but the flamethrower just doesn't have the range for that. Additionally, they hang out at such a range that things like the flamethrower and the arc blitzer just don't have the range to hit them, so they are additionally annoying for that reason. Next up, as a new enemy type that may pop up at this difficulty, is the baseline charger. Now, we already talked about the charger behemoth, but this charger is slightly less healthy. It has 2400 instead of 3000, has heavy armor as well, has a 350 damage stomp attack, and the charge attack is the same at 90 damage and 30 at the end. The charger is a bit of a monstrosity. We've already talked about ways to deal with it. It is the same. Just know that the chargers that show up at challenge rating 4 have less health than the charger behemoths. Additionally, at level 4, we get our first look at the stalkers. These little annoying freak shows are relatively annoying. They know where you are at all times, I'm pretty sure. They have 800 health and light armor. They have a tongue attack that does 350 damage and knocks you back, and 50 damage with a claw attack, and they are fast-moving enemy types. I'm not overly afraid of them, but they are quite annoying. They're really fast, they have a decent amount of health, and they can knock you prone. Next up, moving back to the bile type of enemy, we have the Bile Warriors. Now these are very, very similar to the actual warriors that you'll encounter. They have the 325 health. They have 55 damage with a claw attack, so that's 1-for-1 exactly what the warrior offers. But they have an added ability that when they die, they explode out for 85 damage and damage over time, which can be very, very annoying. And it's acid damage, so it is additionally going to slow you down. So if you see bile enemies in general, stay away from them. They all explode out and damage you over time. Keep your distance. And then we only have one other enemy type that shows up at challenge rating 4, and additionally it only appears on specific missions where you have to go hunt them down, and this is the Bile Titan. These giant four-legged monstrosities have tank level armor, do 6,500 as their health, and have a Bile Spew attack that does 60 damage plus 85 damage per second over time, bile spewing things that also damage you over time after they hit you. And they have a Stomp attack that does an astronomical 3,000 damage if they make contact with you, and it actually has a decent radius, so it's very hard to avoid if you're too close to them. Now the Spew attack that they have can hit you even if you're hiding on top of something. They are pretty decent range with those, and they will follow you to the ends of the earth. They do tend to move relatively fast compared to a normal Helldiver, but if you're in light armor and sprinting, you might be able to outrun them. Either way, they're going to follow you no matter what, as long as they see you. They're pretty annoying to deal with, and most of the time they actually take multiple anti-tank attacks in order to be slain. The rare exception to this is if you can get a perfectly timed shot at the back of their neck, but it is rarely ever exposed. The one great opportunity to do such an attack on them is when they are in the middle of their spew. If you time the attack to right after they get done, their neck will be exposed temporarily. So, Bile Titans are very interesting enemy types. I think they're actually kind of fun to go against, but they can definitely wreak havoc on you if you are distracted by the other hordes of enemies that you'll run into. So keep an eye out for that and aim for the back of the neck if you can.
Don't worry. Top Super Earth scientists have proven that bugs don't feel pain.
Alright, moving along, we have hard difficulty. And there's only one new enemy type that's introduced at this difficulty level. And again, it's one of those enemies that is only introduced in a specific mission to actually go hunt them down, and that's the Impaler. The Impaler is a strange enemy type that looks reminiscent of perhaps a Charger, but is not. Instead, it walks around relatively aimlessly until it finds you, and then it shoves its head into the ground and has tentacles that burrow into the ground and lash out to attack you, kind of like whips. This monstrosity has 4,000 health, has heavy armor just about everywhere, has a Stomp attack that does 350 damage, and its tentacles do 150 damage when they hit you. So be very, very careful when there are Impalers around. Now they do have a very exploitable weakness, is when their head is shoved into the ground to get their tentacles out, they leave a gigantic opening just above the top of their head where their neck is. It's a very exposed bit that you can hit. I think it only has medium armor or even less, It's very easy to exploit and kill them there. That's usually where people end up firing the anti-tank weapon just to obliterate them. You can usually one-shot them from that location. And one additional thing I want to note about the Impaler is that it is 100% pointless to attack the tentacles that pop out from the ground. They end up doing actually 0 damage to the Impaler itself. It doesn't matter how many tentacles you kill, the Impaler won't be damaged whatsoever by that. So keep that in mind while you're out there, guys.
In the first intergalactic war alone, the bugs accounted for the deaths of 189 million super-Earth citizens, many of them babies. Don't let the bugs kill babies. Fight the good fight.
And next up we have the extreme difficulty, which is level 6. And we only have 2 familiar faces that become regulars on this difficulty, which is the Bile Titan and the Impaler. They become regulars. I've already discussed their stats and attacks and ways to defeat them, so I'm not going to dive into it anymore. Just know that at level 6, they become regular enemy types, and they are not just boss fights that you have a mission to go fight.
They escaped the farms. They murdered good citizens of Super-Earth. Now, they're coming for you. The only thing that can stop them? A strong economy! Don't let your family get murdered. Spend your extra cash today.
And next up at level 7, Suicide Mission, we only have 2 new enemy types that show up. The first one is a enemy that we've already discussed earlier, which is the Charger Behemoth. And if you remember correctly, this enemy type showed up at medium difficulty, and it only has a chance to spawn in and replace a regular Charger. The Charger Behemoth, I'll go ahead and do a refresher, is 3,000 health, heavily armored, 350 damage with a stomp attack. Stampede Charge does 90 damage and 30 at the end, and it has a weak spot in its butt. And then next up as the enemy type that additionally only has a chance to spawn is the Spore Charger, and this is especially prevalent on Bile missions. The Spore Charger is very similar to those types of enemies. It has the relatively same stats as a Charger, 2400 health, heavily armored, 350 damage with a stomp attack, and it has a trample charge attack that does 90 damage initially and 30 damage at the end. It also has the additional trait that most of the other Bile type of enemies have, which is it has a death blow explosion, which does 300 damage and damage over time afterwards. So avoid being close to the Spore Chargers if you can. And it also has one additional trait as a Spore Charger, which it acts as a Spore Spewer, which has been a mission objective you can encounter on Terminid missions. It basically causes a giant fog everywhere around you, or rather around it, which makes it additionally hard to see where it's at. Very, very annoying. Very, very annoying. Spore Chargers are some of the worst.
You crash on an uncharted planet, stranded, light years from liberty. Then you hear them. They're almost on you, teeth gnashing, venom glistening in the twin moonlight. Suddenly, you remember the one thing that can save you. Ego sweat. One spray and the world shifts. You mount the beasts and rise, master of your domain, a god among the cosmos. Before long, you are home.
Eagle sweat. With patented nanofragrance technology that literally puts odor molecules to the rack until they give up their secrets. Eagle sweat. Don't just smell it. Live it.
And the last mission difficulty, where we introduce new weapons for the Terminids, is at mission level 8, Impossible. And the new enemy type that we get here is actually a pair. We get the Alpha Commander. And if you remember, a while back we had Brood Commanders at medium difficulty, which would be able to summon a bunch of warriors. Well, the Alpha Commander is similar in that regard, as it can summon 3 Alpha Warriors. Now, what makes these Alphas Alpha? Well, the Alpha Commander has 1,000 health, has light armor, does a charge attack for 70 and a slash attack for 55. And the Alpha Warriors have 325 health and a 55 damage slash, similar to their warrior counterparts, but the Alpha Warriors are significantly faster, and they immediately charge you. So the Alpha Commanders can be quite annoying by spawning in 3 Alpha Warriors from out of the ground and charging you with them. Additionally, if you blow the head off of an Alpha Commander, it will charge extremely fast at you, slashing the entire time. I have died many times by killing an Alpha Commander by blowing its head off and then reloading my weapon early instead of finishing it off. It has that death charge, which is very annoying. If you continue to fire on at the Alpha Commander, it will die faster. So even without its head, it's still alive for a couple of seconds. My advice is, if you're fighting the Alpha Commander, keep shooting even after you blow its head off until you see it drop on the ground, or it will be up your butt very soon. Alright guys, that pretty much covers all the standard Terminid enemy types. There are additional types of enemies that you can run in against the Terminids, however, and those are in specific strains which are environmentally triggered. They are not in every single Terminid attack. They are specific to a planet, and you will likely get a notification that that's the type of enemy that exists in an area. There are 2 types so far that occasionally pop up from time to time. I don't think they're in the game 100% of the time. They're especially not on every single map. They are specifically locked to some planets sometimes, and this is the Predator strain, which has invisible enemy types, which can be tremendously annoying. And the other is the Spore Burst enemy type, which has recently been introduced. These enemy types can explode similar to the Bile types, but are much faster. They're also pretty annoying, but manageable. I have fought quite a few of them recently, and they're not too bad, I would say. Just slightly annoying because they can explode when they die, and they're relatively fast. Alright guys, I think that's it for all of the enemies that you can possibly face in the Terminid faction. Alright Grunts, what have we learned today? Well, the Terminids are melee focused, though on occasion they have some ranged capabilities, usually with some kind of bile attack. And they also have flying, annoying little mosquito enemy types. And their greatest strength is that they try to outnumber you and swarm you and surround you from all sides, or distract you with little enemies while a charger rushes you or a bile titan spews on you, or the bile spewers lob their bombs at you from range. They can be very, very annoying in great numbers and like to call in more allies a lot. But seeing as they in general don't have any kind of guns or specifically ranged weapons that can fire past a certain point, you can engage them from large distances and feel relatively safe. The name of the game is to shoot them before they get a chance to get close to you, so prioritize the ones that are closest to you and hopefully things will go well. Ordnances are usually really good against hordes of them. Napalm is very, very effective against the bugs. And I think that is just about it for my advice on them. Because they have to charge you and get close to you, the melee build is very good. You're not going to get shot at as you're approaching most of the time. The rare occasions that something like that's happening is spore types of enemies, and they still have melee attacks, so they're likely to jump on the chance to hit you with those as well. So melee actually works relatively okay against the Terminids, though you will want some kind of shielding to avoid getting hit, or EMS or stun types of things, in order to slow them down and just not get hit in general. Yeah, they are usually a melee faction with great numbers, and I think a lot of fun to go and kill. But you'll find out on your own, guys. This is my favorite faction to go against. Maybe it'll be some of yours as well. But I think that's it for this video, guys, and I will see you in the next one, where I go over the Automaton enemy faction. Good luck out there, guys, and I hope to see you in only a couple of days on the battlefield. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching this episode of From ODST to Helldiver. If you found any of the information in this video useful, please go ahead and leave a like. And if you have any questions about anything, you want some clarification, or maybe you want to sync up in-game, go ahead and leave a comment down below, and maybe I can add you. We can get a couple of games together. And if you want to see a couple of more videos like this, why don't you go ahead and subscribe? That would really, really be appreciated. And hopefully this video gets you guys a little bit more prepared for when this inevitably drops on the Xbox. I hope everybody watching sees so many similarities between the Helldivers and the ODSTs. They're pretty much doing all of the same things. And I do find this game is, without a doubt, one of the greatest Halo games in the last 10 years. Alright guys, thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next time.